it's not abolishing the patriarchy if you put a woman at the place. So maybe it's not me to start or to close or it's not, but I would abolishing the patriarchy if you put a woman at the place.
And so maybe Sebastian
would be the real patriarch. It's not, but I would abolishing the patriarchy if you put a woman
What happened?
I'm listening to Susanne over and over.
Yeah, but I don't, because there was this sign popping up that there's a live streaming on YouTube, and I didn't click on it immediately, and probably this caused some.
Okay, no problem. Hi, Sebastian.
But I think I might officially thank you for having organized this great forum, having brought in such a fascinating subject with all these panels debating it from different perspectives, and I think it's really, really great, and we thank you so very much for having organized all this.
Thank you. Nice. It was a very nice experience. What do you think, or shall I read the thing that I prepared? So it's going to be a big acknowledgements closing table. So I'm going to read the things that I wrote.
And by the way, Ivonne said, she's stuck in the traffic, in the transport, she's gonna run late.
Okay, but we can start, right? And she can join or watch later on YouTube. Okay, so I'm gonna go. Okay. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's okay. Okay, so I am Lieli Loures. I'm from Brazil. I'm a PhD student in a co-tutel regime between University of Tübingen and Universidade Federal Fluminense, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And I was part of the organization of this event. So I'm going to read my speech for us to close this 2 weeks of debate. This event, idealized by me, Beatriz Medeiros, and Sara Vakili, was supposed to be a 2-day feminist conference or a panel in the International Forum. I still don't know how we end up making the whole forum. We just are glad that Professor Sebastian Thies, along with Professor Suzanne Gomigu and Professor Russell West Pavlov, offered us the opportunity to build this. We thank the University of Tübingen and its Interdisciplinary Center for Global South Studies, and also its Center for Gender and Diversity Research, especially Gero Bauer and Professor Ingrid Hott-Davids for the support they gave us. We thank as well our partners, PPG-Com and Travessias, both from Universidade Federal Fluminense, along with the University of Pretoria and its representatives, Professor Shion O'Connell and Debiot Ghosh. We also thank the partner UCAD, a special thanks to Aminata Sant. And of course, we thank UNAM from Mexico. And here, I need to say a very special thanks to Awa Mendes, the Brazilian indigenous transgender artist that made our design express the spirit we want to bring into this year forum. As Lélia Gonzalez stated in 1981, I quote, "We are tired of knowing that there is no mention of an important social input from popular classes, women, indigenous, Black people in our historical and cultural formation in education, nor the books we study from," end of quotation. With this spirit, this year, the International Forum was driven by the theories developed by Black women such as Audre Lorde, Angela Davis, Beatriz Nascimento, and Lélia Gonzalez. It takes a lot of bravery to use these structures, to change these structures. And for that, I want to thank, besides my dearest friends, Bia and Sara, I want to say a very special thanks to Gabriela Ortuño and Ivonne Sanchez from UNAM, Mexico. Those two women embraced this event, believing in its proposition, and established a wonderful partnership with us. I will take this for life. They compromised since day one and made wonderful panels. Lots of them made me cry. Ivonne is also the responsible for the YouTube stream. She gave the idea and encouraged us to create a tool that will certainly help the discussion to get even to more people. And another special thanks to Carina Stickel that joined us at the very last minute and also embraced the project and helped us to make it happen despite all the problems you faced. And of course, another special thanks to the team of students that volunteered and did the hard work of the technical support. And thanks to Haga Verne. Those people I mentioned above made possible that the 2022 edition of the International Forum present itself as a turning point. I strongly believe we were able to hit the target we established in the proposal, which was to bring together different voices and perspectives in the fields of art, academia, and activism. We did promote a transdisciplinary event, debating the same plot of issues from different perspectives. We brought together and put on the same level artists, activists, and scholars, proving that without representation, it's not possible to even think of a better society. The starting point to build a welfare state and equal political spaces is the embrace of the diversity and plurality of humankind. It is not possible to think about equity in the political field. It's only possible to think about equity in the political field. And at the same time, it's only possible to promote egalitarian and inclusive policies if we are grounded in diversity. By bringing together all the social actors we brought in this year forum, we made clear that the production of knowledge is also a political matter and not only an academic privilege. The production of knowledge is a natural human action. We all produce knowledge, and its production is tightened to our subjectivity in relation to our surrounding. Therefore, humankind's knowledge is rich because it's diverse and plural. The idea that there's only one way to produce and recognize knowledge is a lie and also a violence, as it excludes all the diversity humankind is capable of. That's why the works we selected for this year conference were able to express diversity. By putting those works into dialogue, we engaged with a decolonial feminist approach as forms of resistance to the power structure. At the same time, the way we put them together was an attempt to articulate and bring to the surface the conflict inherent in the dialogue, in the communication process, in the humankind's existence as a whole. Please notice that I'm not using conflict as a synonymous of violence. The conflict I'm talking about is the result of an encounter. I am using the word conflict as the antonym of consensus. I will ask you to consider this in the big framework of the decolonial and intersectional perspective. In this context, the idea of consensus is violent because it presupposes that we all have to have the same opinions and think along the same line of thoughts. It is a fascist way to be in the world. That's why the concept of intersectionality is crucial for plurality. As an intersectional feminist myself, an activist and research, I embrace intersectionality as a powerful tool in my work. It's never too much to remind intersectionality is a concept from Black thinkers and feminists. The term was coined by the North American thinker and lawyer Kimberly Crenshaw. However, the system of simultaneous violence and oppressions has been perceived by Brazilian Black feminists since at least 1970s. Lélia Gonzalez, Beatriz Nascimento, and Eliette Safiotti were some of the authors who have already noticed and pointed out this phenomenon in their researches. In the context of Latin America, following Lélia Gonzalez, the simultaneous oppressions are only possible thanks to the set of characteristics attributed to certain bodies through the Eurocentric systems that create myths to define human diversity in the category of others. Just summarizing the idea of intersectionality as a tool of research, I will bring a quote from Mara Viveiros. So she says, the intersectionality approach consists in apprehending social relations as simultaneous constructions in different orders of class, gender, and race, and in different historical configurations that form what Candace Wester and Sara Fantersmarker call situated realizations. That is, contexts in which the interaction of the categories of race, class, and gender actualize these categories and give them their own meanings. Viveiros reminds us that we must consider the relationship between the researcher and their background to be honest with this process of intersectionality. That's why we asked, among other questions expressed in the call for paper, to get to know the strategies developed for underprivileged groups such as LGBTQI+, Black people, women, and indigenous. In the call for paper, we also marked Global South as a territory to be looked at. And I would like to add that Global South is a territory that can be tracked even in the North, as the Ukraine war has shown us precisely with the shock of the European refugees. We saw in the news, but not only in the news, the reactions provoked by the fact that white, light-eyed people being in the situation of asking for refuge. We saw how non-European and non-white people in the same situation were treated. I'm bringing this example to wrap up with a few theoretical problems we managed to address in this forum. We open this Congress centralizing the discussion in the body, precisely the normative female body, with the table Gendered Ruptures of Performance on Social Media in Brazil by Beatriz Medeiros. And we started, by beginning like this, we started this 2 weeks of discussion with the issue of reproducing the same hegemonic standards for women body in the virtual space. We also marked that in the same way it happens, the same way that happens in the material world, it's happening in the virtual space. We are just bringing the same issues in another human space, if I say so. And we also marked that there is still racism and other kinds of prejudice operating in this virtual world as we have in the material world. We spoke about toxic masculinity and the way men dominate space, even by the sound and music. We discussed territory through activism, art, and poetry. In different tables, we did that. We learn about affirmation through the body as a resistance against patriarchy. We learn about ecofeminism. We learn about the power of children's histories to empowerment of young girls and to defeat violence. We also learn about art as a tool to express and to go against the situation of feminicide in Mexico. We learn about the colonizing feminism and the colonizing experience of women. We spoke about love and resistance, about motherhood, intimacy as a strategy of resistance. And we close this 2 weeks event with the table Decolonizing Strategies in the field, in the digital field. Throughout these discussions, this event showed the plurality of practical and theoretical actions that are being thought and brought to the world in forms of resistance, showing that if the oppression is intersectional, resistance is, besides being intersectional, diverse and much more alive. I would like to end my speech by thanking everyone who took the time to submit those fantastic proposals and those who took the time for following us in these 2 weeks. I thank you all. That's it.
Thank you so much, Lieli, for this wrap up. I'm not sure what to do now.
I think that this is the end.
I think intersectionality is the key point here.
Yes.
Because we started like in just, I think I mentioned Audre Lorde, like in just when she says that in the Black community, I am lesbian, and in the lesbian community, I am Black. And there is no hierarchy of oppression. Yes. And then at the end of her article, she mentions actually that, and when they appear to destroy me, it will not be long before they appear to destroy you. And any kind of attack against like and just gay and lesbians is kind of an issue for Black people, and any attack against Black people is a gay and lesbian issue. And I think this goes very well with the concept of intersectionality that Crenshaw, like just mentioned in her articles. And I think intersectionality is the point, because when you think about global South, you cannot think about a homogeneous global South, right?
I also I think that intersectionality brings to me, especially as an activist, the idea that there's not possible to have a consensus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when we are among exclusively among feminists, we see the different chains. Yeah. And then we see that everyone brings a point of view and all of them are important. And it makes us think about, even though we don't agree, we listen to each other. It's not always like that, but we listen to each other and we understand other points. Because if we started to wish to be hegemonic, then we lose completely, because feminist is this kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. It must be critical all the time and must criticize itself. That's why we have so many chains. So intersectionality, together with this experience I had in being an activist, makes me sure that there's no point of trying to make a consensus. Yeah. But in the conflict that we learn, that we grew, that we can understand each other. That's the only way. In the friction of the relationship, that's what I call conflict. So I think intersectionality is the key.
And I please correct me, like just if I am wrong, and then maybe Susanne and Sebastian and Beatriz would like to add. But I think like just for example, colonizing a culture is more like just imposing like just your own culture or one culture over the other culture by erasing the language and kind of like just imposition of a certain form of knowledge, right? But decoloniality or decolonial perspective is not undoing that. It's a kind of like just has different forms, because that's why intersectionality becomes important, because we don't have one way of decolonizing or decolonial perspective. Colonization has one tool, like in just imposing your culture, your knowledge, and your language over one culture. And this is, I think, like just true for every colonization. But decolonizing is not undoing that. It's totally like just diverse.
Yeah, it's not the opposite. I think that's, if
Yes.
I'm following you right, it's not the opposite.
Yes.
It's just decolonizing is the way of opening a space for plurality, for the diversity that we
and
are
resisting,
to show that there are more ways of expressing ourselves, you know, and because we are not equal, you know, the equality is a political concept, is an imaginary concept, because when you look to us, we are completely diverse, and that's I think what decolonizing is about, to show the diversity and make it happen in a free way. It's not the opposite of, you know, I think you're right, if I got it right.
It's a way of resisting, right? Even with assimilation, if that is necessary, as we saw in many papers presented on this year's forum, the assimilation as a part of identity construction is also a form of resistance, is also a form of decolonial thinking in the sense, because we cannot erase the colonial past. We cannot, and as we saw in Oscar Iber's presentation earlier, the colonial thinking, the construction of a coloniality of mind, it is much more deeply rooted into humankind than we can actually measure. And it uses a load of tools to do that. So the way of resisting sometimes is even recognizing this. Anzaldúa will say that with the conceptualization of mestizaje, it is to accept my colonizer side and also accept my indigenous side, my side that resists this form of violence, of oppression. So we ought to fight against violence, we ought to fight against oppression, and this is the coloniality. That is why it's not the opposite. It's like saying that feminism it's the opposite of machism or sexism, and it's not about that. Feminism is a form of resistance and not a way of oppressing men. So it is complex. That is why it's so difficult to win this hegemonic way of thinking and this hegemonic way of oppression, because we have to go against something that is so much bigger and yet has so simpler tools to win this war, if we can say that. This, what we are doing, is much more complex. Yeah.
Maybe we should invite, yes, go ahead.
No, I would say, but it gives me hope that we are discussing this and open this up. And also breaking barriers and, you know, going beyond the bubbles that we create inside academia. It is also important for us to expand this discussion.
Maybe we should invite just other viewers if they like to share their ideas. Sebastian, Susanne, I don't want to call names, so whoever would like to share.
Sebastian, Susanne, I don't want to call names. Ivonne,
Ivonne, Oscar, whatever, and I don't. If you like to share your ideas, your take on. I mean, what? Yes, Sebastian.
Well, first of all, I obviously want to thank you. You did a marvelous job on getting this together, and I think it was organized. Obviously, we didn't when I think it was Lieli who first approached me. and when we started to discussing how to involve the ICGSS in this, we didn't have in mind what would turn out the political situation at the moment that is basically shows a radical challenge to patriarchy, and I think it is a violent situation in Iran at the moment, but it is also a situation of hope, and it shows you how a local struggle is able to articulate movements all over the globe, and this is, I think, what this difficult moment holds as a kind of utopian idea to a certain extent. And when we before you started the forum, we just came out of our Civis school on the pluriverse. Basically, Iran was the keynote at the end. This was somehow it became clear in all of the discussions that you can't really tackle or conceptualize a pluriverse without tackling the problem of patriarchy and this linkage between patriarchy and colonialism. The second thing I wanted to say is that when obviously these events have a long trajectory, and it is always a big challenge to get this dialogue going between African studies, Latin American studies, activists from different contexts, India, Iran. So I think this is the biggest challenge in it all, because it opens up. Well, you when you start this kind of dialogue or communication, you become aware of a host of different ways of coining words and practices, and this is what is so enriching. But at the same time, it is also very, very challenging to open up to this. So I think that especially if you address this huge issue of how to decolonize patriarchy, but also decolonizing feminism, it is obviously something which is a process to be done, and there is surely a long way to go, because somehow patriarchy and coloniality became ingrained in capitalism, and then in this the processes of datification that we discussed today. So it is an uphill struggle, but it holds a lot of promise, and I think that what you did, what you brought together, is a very promising and fruitful step towards this goal.
Shall I comment something? I think I think you're right, Sebastian. Thank you for mentioning that. I think, I mean, even in the 21st century, we realize how female body is important and powerful, and at the same time fragile. So in the whole world, for example, we see Iran, that this female or women movements, as much as it is not anti-masculine, it is anti-patriarchy, but at the same time, patriarchy and religious fundamentalism in Iran are the same thing. Yes. So anti-patriarchy in Iran doesn't mean anti-patriarchy in the West. So because anti-patriarchy and fundamentalism, religious, it is more like in just the whole movement is about religion, fundamentalism. At the same time, we see like in just how women could be powerful to kind of like in just, because the whole system now is kind of collapsing because of women's movement. And at the same time, it is sad to see that in Ukraine, that we have war in the kind of like in just the far east, if I can call it, to the west, that Russian soldiers violate and rape Ukrainian women in order to show their power. The most like just antique techniques of colonizing and imposing your power and showing your power, that I think I don't know if I can call it savage. It was a savage way of showing your power, like in just many years, 1,000 years in the war, and still in the 21st century, like in just the countries use the same technique. I don't want to mention, probably US did the same thing, and Afghanistan and Iraq. Probably we didn't hear, media didn't cover, they didn't have a coverage about it, but we know that like in just how female bodies or women got raped and sexually violated by soldiers. Now I see hands are coming up, so maybe I ask Susanne to continue. That was only like in just my comment.
Okay, thank you for mentioning this. But I think this is nothing new in the 21st century, and it is not special to Russian soldiers. You just have to, the first thing that came, Rwanda was such a case, yes. Congo, yes. It's everywhere.
Everywhere, but I'm saying like, no, it is very sad.
Yeah, but my yes. impression was it becomes, obviously it becomes, and this would also be to have, when it's happening in Europe.
It's problem.
Is it more problematic? Isn't that a very colonial perspective, saying even in the developed Europe, this is happening now, and we're not looking at it when it's happening in Africa?
Yes, I think it is problematic, yeah. Like, just because the first world countries cannot see that they are using the savage tools to kind of like function and show their powers. Because war, as long as it was in Syria, in Africa, in other side of the world, was not a big problem. When US kind of invade just Iraq was not a problem because they brought democracy to Iraq. But now it's kind of it becomes problematic because it is on the far east of the border with the West. And this is the problem that we have. Yes, I think I agree with you, Susanne. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, Ivonne and Lieli.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry because we have a little bit of transport issues here in Mexico City, and so I was very late today, and Gabi has told me already that she's having problems connected with the network in the faculty, so I'm sorry. First of all, thank you all for all the efforts in order to this forum to take place. I think it was a very personal also kind of work and involvement, especially for Lieli, for Sara and Beatriz. And actually, I am very glad to see while recording the face of Beatriz, because she has been like in the shadows managing all the technical stuff. So thank you very much, Beatriz, for all that work. And I'm very glad to see your face now. So first of all, thank you for all the work that has been and the soul and the everything like human efforts. And I first wanted to address, like, for me, it was very interesting and revealing all the panels that have been organized, because it touches a lot with the human experience and the fact that all these activisms or actually like the work in research involvements and research projects have been very in touch with the human experience and the consciousness that has been developed from the decolonial side, from the deconstructing patriarchy and the feminism. And I think that it's very important to underline this character, because it has been also very transformative, like the experience. Many of the routes in order to do research or work in ONGs, yes, it has many values involved, but the actual fact that all these panelists has been like a shocking event or like a shocking of consciousness that have been in order to them to get like this to this point and research these topics and leave it 24 hours, 7 days a week, 300 days all year. It's very important, and it's I think it's the very first time that we have been encountered with this. We have along the years in the forum, like another forums that have touched very important issues, like the commissions for the truth, and it's also like a very deepening experience. But it has been with in a different level, and throughout the book presentation from Monday, from the testimony of from the disparition also that connects that through the gaze of and the perspective of feminism and gender, it has been in another layer. Or like the performance of the project for feminism for children that we had on Tuesday was also very interesting, and some other panelists. For me, it was very, very interesting and very touching in many different levels. And I wanted to underline this aspect of the forum of this year. And about the last comment, I think it's very interesting what Sara and Susanne have pointed out, because yes, it is like actually, I think it's pointed out by many scholars that like the new wars, one of the characteristics of the new wars is like the targeting of women in order to not only establish overpowering to the enemy, but destroying like mentally and morally and community nexus in the enemy in order to establish the victor. And it has been very difficult for all them. I'm especially thinking on Adriana Caballero and her work that it's called Horrorism, and she's working with the I don't know how to translate it because I'm only read it in Spanish, but like the vulnerability of women and children, or mental health, or males valids, or all the population that is, and she uses the term in inerme. I don't know if someone can tell me if it's actually kind of similar word in English. But I think it's at that point where gender and child infancy, it's a very specific target. So, and it's another layer what Susanne has also pointed out, that if it's happened in the third world or the developing countries or the global south, it's assumed like it's a characteristic of this savageness or like this intrinsic values or intrinsic characteristic of the culture, but it's not always pointed out as also Sara mentioned, like it's mostly of the cases it's we have a first world or northern country intervening in all this global south conflict. So that's always a little obscure in all the media coverage. And this is also another point, like visibility is very important in how we problematize and how we perceive, actually, even if it's visible, all these unbalanced issues of power. And in the case of the themes of this year's forum, actually all the continuity of the patriarchy and is still going colonializing logics and feminism and gender issues. I wanted also to point it out that for the UNAM, it's a very interesting and very conjunctural forum because we just, before the pandemics, we actually, as a faculty of philosophy and letters in the UNAM, we have in November 2019, it started as a feminist strike. And then we went to COVID, and then the strike had to be stopped. And we come again into activities, but nowadays, actually this month, we have been having a lot of issues and menacing of coming again in a strike, of feminist strikes, because we, the students are pushing for neutral gender bathrooms, like neutral gender policies, like more attention on harassment and academic and sexual in our facilities, and in order to be more inclusive and address like effectively all these problems. So all the panels along this forum were very deeply important for us. So and in that sense, I wanted to, I don't know if she's already here, she managed to connect back online already, but Gabi was a very key and instrumental figure in order to to call all these feminist groups that were gathered in all the Spanish panels, specifically because she's also an activist and researcher on those topics. I'm on the literature side, and actually I wanted, there were not a lot of specific papers on literature, and I also wanted to point out that but it was very interesting to see or to read like the current women writers in Latin America that they're actually like problematizing many of the issues that all the panelists have brought up to discussion in this year's forum. So for the UNAM, it was also a very important panel forum and very important panels in different subjects. And I wanted to just mention that, and again, thank you for all the efforts, Lieli, Beatriz, and Sara.
Who is next, Sara? I think you are managing the list.
You were.
I think Lieli, you are the next, and then Beatriz, and then Susanna. So I don't want to manage.
But you are. I'm sorry to inform. Oh, thanks, Ivonne. I think this whole event, it's also yours and Gabriella's effort. It represents, we can see you in this too. So we also thank you in the same way, because you were very important. And I cried in many panels that, you know, the Spanish panels, like the the story for children and all of them, the one that I don't remember the name, but about the feminist side with a beautiful artwork and lots of others. I was like emotional. It was very beautiful. So it was a very powerful event. I agree. And I just want to make I try to be short in my comment, going back to Sara's comment and Suzanne, also about rape and the shock of the white refugees. First, rape, since I know, it's my field of research, so that's why I'm going to say that, is not a savage action. It's very ancient, it's very, very ancient, but is a very sophisticated tool of domination. So it's you can track rape back in the very long time of history, and it's related to patriarch. And in my research and the way that I see things, patriarch is, and I think historically also we can see the patriarch is the first system of oppression, and it is built upon gender binaries. That's why it's so important to have men and women. And rape is this technique, this tool that helps to build a lot of other forms of dominance. So it's very ancient. And you are right, is in any war that you can track, rape is going to be present as a tool of dominance. And as Rita Segato says, and she explained it very clearly, that rape is a way of communication that has two signs. One is a communication, the action that communicates a communication between the perpetrator and the victim, showing the power, but also an action that communicates to the equal. And that's why it's so important when you study rape to understand this binary system of gender, because the perpetrator is also talking to the equal, and the equal is usually a man. The manhood is important to the system because it's showing also if they defeat, that's why it's used in war, who is the tribe of men that is in charge now, and who is the defeater by the rape. So the women body becomes a part of the territory that's trying to be, dominate, and also a surface of inscriptions that can communicate, So it's very, very ancient, but it's very sophisticated. That's why we can see it until today. And just by I don't know if I understood it right, or if I was clear in my speech, but I brought the I don't know if is that why Susanne comment, but the shock I was referring, it was the shock about the Ukrainian war and the refugees. It was the shock that I saw in European people, not in the people outside of Europe. I saw lots of comments on news and social media by important people, journalists and politicians, saying they were shocked to see this here in Europe, and we that are not from Europe, we was, why? I mean, it's something that that's exactly what you said, shocking if it's here, but if it's not here, if the global South, it's okay to happen. So yeah, who was in shock was the European people. That's my comment.
So I just wanted to maybe changing the key a little bit, but not so much. I just want to comment on the impressive numbers of proposals and the impressive work that Gabriela did to come up with the Spanish panels. And for me, this is a sign of a global movement that we are seeing now happening within activist feminisms around the world. So we are seeing, just as an example, the US as a country that's seen as progressists coming back and retroceding in laws of criminalization of abortion, for example. And we are seeing another wave surging and gaining form in Latin America for the rights of women, the right on their bodies. And I think this is also really factual, and it is demonstrated by this event with the numbers of people proposing works in Spanish, which is hugely, it's major, and it is really important, because I don't know if this is factual, but my sensation is that in the South, we speak much more Spanish than other languages. Okay, so maybe not English, because English is more widely devoted, but it's good to see that we are having this increase in participation of Spanish-speaking people, and I think this is really important, or Hispanic-speaking people, because it demonstrates a really particular way of interacting or reacting to patriarchy that comes from places such as Latin America as a whole. So the feminist and gender movements in Mexico, in Chile, in Argentina, it is really enriching to see that people were committed to demonstrate these in an event that is happening on the North, in an event that I hope that from now on has this tradition of bringing Spanish-speaking people as well. I was really captivated, and I was really glad with the type of movements that were felt within this, and to also show that in the South, we are progressing, sometimes even much more than in the North. And this is a sort of demonstration that only proves that we are not just creators, that we are creators of data. We're not just a field to be gathered, the fields of exploration in the sense. So I would like to pinpoint that, and also thank you all for for this committed discussions. I am not going to enter in matter of war and rape. I think a lot has been said. Let's leave it for another time.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring in a perspective from the Francophone panels with African contributions, and I don't know, maybe I don't want to speak for the Africans, but they are not raising their hands. I feel like responsible to say something, because it's not very systematic. It's just 3 impressions. Vakili.
Tu peux parler pour tout le monde.
It's just 3 impressions. One thing which Fatoumata Keita showed very impressively, even more at our civil school as in the panels, is the hesitation to use the notion of feminism. Yeah, because many, let's say, female activists in Africa are clearly saying, no, we are not feminists, because feminism is considered as something Occidental. And so you have the colonial logic in the relation to women from the West. Yeah, so there's, and maybe we had also the example of Leonora Miano, who is saying, I won't use these colonizing she doesn't say colonizing. It's this is me in this decolonial context. But the idea would be we need to decolonize Western feminism, and she's looking for other ways. For another, her book is entitled L'autre langue des femmes, the other language of women, and she's looking very much for examples of pre-colonial African societies and their handling of domination, or even sexuality is also an important part, because we had in the first panel we had, which was more the examples were such that the idea was the African woman is oppressed by a polygamic patriarchy, which is probably a very Muslim-centered perspective. And Leonora Miano is looking for examples in pre-colonial societies where women had the right to have several sexual relations before choosing one, or things like that. So in having another perspective and seeing all these things that might be might give another role to finding a certain role for women. On the other side, on the other hand, she's very much looking also for, or linking the ideal of woman to maternity, because she says this is in most African societies very linked. And I couldn't ask the question, but in this discussion, and now when you were talking of abortion, which is one of the main things in Western feminism, how would this relate? I mean, I think it doesn't have to be a contradiction, but it would probably give another perspective to all these. So I think these were the few remarks I wanted to make.
I just wanted to point out, Susanne, you're completely right. And we can never forget that abortion means one thing for white women and another thing altogether for Black women. Because abortion, and of course, I can say in the perspective of, in an African perspective, because I only know the diasporic perspective of this, but the idea of abortion was also used as a form of genocide towards Black bodies in diaspora in the context of enslavement. So yes, it's always complex. It's not one answer. It's the shock that Lieli talked about in her speak. It's the conflict. It's the point of disagreements, but we do have to talk about them. We do have to address them. And Ivonne posted that Douglas Santos on YouTube asked, what do we have to do to demystify the generalized idea of a unity epistemology in Global South? And I think Oscar, I don't know if you want to speak, he's responding to that question, but if you guys want to comment to that. Okay, so Oscar wrote, part of the strategy is to recognize the root of patriarchal fallacies and how men developed social organization modes to oppress egalitarian epistemes. And I completely agree with that, because it is important to pinpoint the root, so we can actually like destruct the fundament of this constructed oppression. And that is why it's not so easy to do, because of, like we were saying, it's on the cracks of the societies. So the idea of oppression, it grows because it begins in the failure of the systems. So we have to fix these failures, these systematic failures.
May I?
Yeah, of course.
May I? But because that is what Fatoumata Keita said.
Yes.
Many, and she considers many. She's talking of many types of African feminism, which maybe wouldn't use the label, but she would say it is feminism. So this is also, but there are also some voices who are against the idea of equality. They say Western feminists want equality. We don't want equality. We want our own sphere or something.
Reality. Yes.
Many of the main issues of Western feminism may be debated.
Yeah. No, of course, it's not. We cannot say it is completely inclusive and it's going to solve every problem. No, of course not, because problems comes with different bodies, territories, and existence, and that's why we have to imagine futures. We have to imagine possibilities. I think I'm going to let Lieli and Sara speak now.
Sara, I think you were first there. No?
No, I wanted to read those comments first, and then you talk, and then I comment on that. We don't hear you, Lieli.
Sorry. I just want to comment, Suzanne, about the author that she brought, that and the African women that refuse feminism. In Brazil, we have a very powerful indigenous women movement that also refuses to call themselves feminists, but they are also in the struggle for their existence. So we kind of can fight together. I'm not sure if we can fight together like in this sense, but we can have dialogues. And I totally understand this point of view, because I totally agree that feminism is something that is related to the idea of democracy. So it's the proto-feminism, as we call, of course, is white, but we also, if you dig a little bit, you're going to find Black feminists and indigenous in the same, as we call proto-feminism. It started with the idea of, in the same time as the bourgeois revolution. I forgot in English, I am thinking Portuguese, sorry, Revolução Burguesa, and the Enlightenment. And that's when women started to claim, when white men started to claim the right of resistance, equality, and all this whole concept we're still fighting against. The women started to persecute the same thing. And also indigenous and Black at the same time, they also started to claim, because the whole system of living and production was changing. So there was this struggle, and feminism emerges. It was a proto-feminism and then became feminism. So it's totally related with this idea, Western idea, if we looked at this by this angle. So they are right. But patriarch, I think we can, as I said, it's the first pavement of this many layers that we have. can be tracked in other societies. So I think it's right to critique, and I think that's the idea. I think if we don't put ourselves in dialogue and accept that we are diverse and different point of views and different territories, and I think that's how we can make things change. Otherwise, we're just going to be repeating. And also, feminism is part of a system that we are trying to break. So, of course, we are going to be sometimes reproduce the system we are trying to break. That's why we have to be many, and we have to have many chains, and we have to argue in the sense of have discussion, not fight. But sometimes we do have to fight to put our perspectives and point of view. Yeah, I think that's it. I want to comment.
I think I forgot what I wanted to say, like related to Susanne, I think comments. I think I agree with you that women from Global South don't call them feminists in terms of like just what, because feminism is something accidental, like just or from the West, and I believe in that because I think the issue comes from this IST at the end of feminist, because that kind of imply a certain forms of ideology and politicize like just the whole movement that, for example, whereas in Iran we call it only like just women movement or Jombesh Zanan, which is like just women's movement, like just literally translating it means women movement. And I think what they are kind of like just looking for is not, for me, I think equity becomes more important than equality, because equality is like just to have the same resource and opportunity, and equity is kind of like just recognizing that people from different like just circumstances can have access to opportunities in order to have an equal outcome. And I think this is important. And at the same time, what I forgot what I wanted to add in terms of like in just feminism, but I think like in just women from the Global South are not searching the same thing that the women from Global North are searching. This is the difference we have. Like in just we are not in the same situation. We shouldn't be in the same situation. We shouldn't follow the feminism from the Global South, from the Global North. And I realized like in just over the course of like in just last year, how feminism and being a feminist in the Western society is a negative thing. People are scared to kind of like in just identify themselves as a feminist. Even like in just I'm dealing with young students and mostly women in my classes, and half of them are kind of like just denied to be feminists, and they don't want to be feminists. And this is something, the problem that feminists like in the West has, because it has become so radical, so political, so anti-men, like just hating men, that kind of like just scares people away from become feminists. Bakarai, you're after me, and then Valeria.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais d'abord présenter mes excuses à tout le monde parce que je me suis absenté au niveau des panels. Je ne sais pas si vous m'entendez. Alors, je me suis absenté parce que l'année a redémarré ici et j'ai eu des enseignements presque toute la semaine. Désolé donc de m'absenter. Je voudrais féliciter donc les organisatrices et les organisateurs, fondamentalement organisatrices des panels, Lieli, Béatrice, toute l'équipe, de manière générale, félicitations. J'ai eu des échos vraiment de l'organisation. Je m'en veux d'avoir raté les panels
Is he well? While there is a problem with the connection, I might already translate the beginning. So he was first apologizing for not having been present all the time because classes have restarted at university in Dakar, and so he was very busy teaching classes. And he then expressed his thanks to the organizers, saying that this was really a beautiful, no, you don't say beautiful in English, an impressive forum, and he's sorry to have lost so much of it. And he said, and that was when the connection was broken, he was just saying that he had feedback. Vakili, tu continues?
Oui.
Oui, la connexion, c'était...
Oui.
Et donc, j'ai traduit ce que tu as dit avant.
Alors, juste pour deux choses. Le premier, c'est que je vais laisser Astou et Aminata sont dans le panel. Ils vont réagir un petit peu à l'interpellation sur le féminisme africain. Ils en ont déjà parlé quelque part. Donc, je vais leur laisser parler du féminisme parce que on m'accuse à Dakar de former des féministes. Si c'est vrai, je m'en réjouis de former des féministes. Donc, ils vont réagir.
Okay, so est-ce que je peux rapidement? Donc,
oui.
He's saying on the issue of feminism, he will leave Astou Sanya and Aminata Samb. Express them that he is accused of in Dakar to form feminists, and he's enjoying it.
Parfait. Le deuxième élément que je voulais signaler concernant juste sur le féminisme, c'est assez complexe. Complexe qu'on vit ici, le cas du Sénégal. Tout le monde sait que il y a eu du point de vue politique le vote sur la parité, parité homme-femme dans les instances de décision, dans les niveaux politiques. Mais la question qu'on se pose, c'est quels sont les impacts, par exemple, de l'instauration de la parité sur le développement de ce qu'on appelle le féminisme africain. Ça, c'est une question. Est-ce que ça a des impacts? Est-ce que ça a provoqué dans la conscience des femmes et dans leur rapport à l'homme et à l'institution a changé quelque chose? Je pense que oui. Dans quel sens? Je ne sais pas. Deuxième série de questions que je me pose, c'est dans la relation entre le public et le privé, l'espace public et l'espace privé. Comment vivent les femmes, comment les femmes vivent l'expérience féministe dans les foyers et comment vivent-elles cette expérience dans l'espace public qui est un espace censé, du point de vue institutionnel, censé appliquer la parité. Donc, c'est une série d'interrogations qu'on peut se poser à ce niveau-là et qui permettent de penser qu'il y a quelque chose qui est en mouvement, qui est en place, une dynamique que probablement ils apporteront, elles, toutes les deux apporteront des informations sur ça, mais il me semble qu'il y a quelque chose qui est en train de se passer, qui n'est pas forcément lié au féminisme, je dis au mouvement féministe du point de vue occidental, mais qui passe par les canaux d'une réalité qui cherche à prendre forme, une réalité africaine. Il y a plusieurs noms. Fatoumata Keita est revenu sur ça. Donc, une réalité africaine qui cherche à prendre forme et qui passe par les canaux de l'expérience du féminisme et de la manière dont les femmes vivent leur espace, leur rapport à l'espace, leur présence dans l'espace public, également leur rapport à l'espace privé. Voilà un petit peu quelques éléments que je voulais signaler sous le mode d'interrogatif. Je dois retourner en classe. Désolé, mais c'est juste pour lancer le débat et je laisse continuer le débat. Merci à tout le monde.
Okay, merci beaucoup. So he's just saying he has to, I will translate, but he has to go back to class. So he just wants to suggest or to give us some questions he's thinking about with respect to the situation in Senegal, which is a quite complex one. And so he was pointing to the fact that there is I'm not sure whether is there a debate about installing parity in political representation, or has it been installed?
À l'Assemblée nationale et dans l'espace politique, dans les postes électifs pendant les élections, on impose la parité homme-femme.
Okay, so this is already fact, yeah. So in the political elections, there has to be parity in the election process and in the seats, things we don't have in Germany, or not in all political parties, and so what does this? How may this be felt in society, and how might it also be lived by women in this in the connection between the public space and the private space? What does it mean to have this imposed in the public space? What does it mean for women to live these experiences in their private space?
Bye-bye tout le monde.
Okay.
Maybe shall we ask Valeria, because she is waiting for a long time to comment, and then maybe we can address Bakari's question. So Bakari, sorry.
Okay, hi.
Ciao.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Good evening, and I just want to say that first, thank you very much, because I think after 10 days of this forum, I'm really happy because I was participating via YouTube and also via Zoom, and I think that it's an extremely great achievement that you have finished and managed all this forum. And I just have 3 comments, and the first is that I think that it was a huge work that you have managed to put together activists and academic feminists from different parts of the planet, because it generates a lot of perspectives from literature from women, and also from trans and girls, fanzines, graffiti, techno-feminism, eco-feminism, cyber-feminism, sonorities, poetry, and yeah. I think that just like a comment, I just miss a little bit of this part of the defense, and also the cases of rape of the body, and the defense of the territory from the feminism in the Andean region. But I know that is totally out of your control, because you just ask for the people if they want to participate. But if somebody didn't send something, it's not it's something that you can imagine. But that's why I think that I have the second commentary, that it's that I think maybe this forum could be extended for the next year, and I think that it could be really interesting if maybe I don't know, but I can't be volunteer with you to support the contact with the Andean region, because Lieli said something about Rita Segato, and she worked as a visitor in the doctorate from the Universidad Andina in Ecuador, that it's where I come from. So I think that it could be really interesting if there's in the next year or in the next semester, I don't know, a new forum. And the third comment is just that I noticed that there are a lot of people that now, I don't know why, but they also are contacting me to ask you, because I said that, I'm in Tübingen, but now a lot of people from Heidelberg and also from an international red from women and feminists, where I'm a little bit involved, want to know if there's a new possibility of a face-to-face encounter or forum. And yeah, I just want to really thank you. And I think that it could be really amazing if the next year, I don't know, or in 6 months, I don't know. But if there are these possibilities, and yeah, I just want to say thank you. And I think that the experiences for linking Africa, Mexico, Chile, and Brazil were a really huge, work. And I just want to thank you, because it's a real practice of decolonizing feminism, not just in the papers, but also in our lives. So
Thank you so much, Valeria. I'm sorry, I just jumped in because it's difficult to organize an event of these grandiousness. I want to say this, like of this size. It's really a lot. We will have to think about it. Not in 6 months, though. 6 months.
This is great. You wanted to organize one panel, organize the whole forum, and now you're asked to redo
it. What is going on?
So I was thinking, I mean, and I want to talk on behalf of Ivonne that because we are in America's continent, and we would love to come to Tübingen, whether like just with the Global South or without the Global South. Maybe we can come up with a 2-day, like just a weekend, like just form of conference, something that we can get something like just from maybe this forum, and maybe we can do a continuation of something. And anyway, I'm coming to Tübingen next July. So if we want to plan something in person, we should do it.
I think in the future, you never know. I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Valeria, for your comments. And we are tired, but I want to continue. We started this panel before we opened everything. Sara and I, we are talking about the first time we've met, 2019, in the 2 weeks event here in Tübingen University. And then we are just wondering how it would be if it has been in presential, because it would be very powerful. We missed the part that we can sit down and have dinner with some lunch with someone that you
maybe go watch a movie, like
Suzanne just. So this part is really something that then because you saw so many impressive, in a very good way, things that we need. I was like, I need time to process that. I cannot comment just straight away. We need time. So when we are presential, we have this time to talk to the person.
Exactly.
So it would be lovely if we could have.
And I want to comment something funny and bring all of the feminists to Patriarchy Tübingen. Would have been lovely. And also
shock the city.
Shock the city.
I was going to say something serious, but now I forgot it, like after a joke. I think I was trying to think about what Vakili said.
Yes.
I was going to. I don't know if I understood him right.
Me neither.
In my life experience, especially after being a mother, I gave a lot of thoughts about the private space and this division that we have. And I think the most strong issue that we have is not the private, the house, the environment in the house, is how we diminish it. The problem is, because in Brazil, for instance, we have lots of women that raise children, that work in the house, that do housework, and they love it. And they do recognize themselves, and they see how important this job is. But the society outside didn't. So that's the problem. We diminish the housework and this kind of work, and which is super important, because who is going to do the work outside if you don't have a backup inside? So I don't know if I get him, but I think we have I remember once, I'm gonna tell a personal story. Once I was I was going to meetings to join a party, a political party, feminist political party. Marcia Tiburi is a Brazilian thinker and philosopher, and she was trying to build a feminist party. And then I started to join the meetings to see how I could contribute. And then one girl came up with the idea of I don't know, Bia, help me, pano de prato, how do we translate it?
A dishcloth.
A dishcloth with feminist, empowerment things. And it was a big issue among the other women, because we cannot bring this as a symbol of oppression. And then it was a huge discussion between us, among us, because we are just trying to raise this. There are the housework and this domestic environment is super powerful. And if you don't embrace it and try to change the value that we put on it, it's going to be hard to change things. Because when you think about if a man does, the problem is not the housework, because when a man does the housework, in Brazil is very much like this, is he becomes like something very, famous and impressive. And when a woman is doing the same thing for the whole life, it's nothing. So the problem is not really with this kind of environment, but the value we put on it. So I'm not sure if I understood and if I respond or comment, but that's what I understood and put.
I understood differently.
So go ahead.
I understood that he was saying, Suzanne, please correct me if I'm wrong. He was saying about parity, gender parity inside political parties, right? And that's something that does not happen even in Germany. So this is really progressive, and how could this influence the public and private spheres, or the perceptions of public and private spheres? Did I get that right? Yes, I think that's really interesting, because when it's like the quota law that we have in Brazil for Black, indigenous people and people that come from favelas, from the peripheric people, right? The poor people. When we do these affirmative laws, we see things happening and changing within society. I mean, it's just because we can be futuristic about it. We don't have like a ball or a tarot deck that will tell us, oh, now the women will conquer the public space as well. But I think that to enforce these egalitarian laws, so a party must have the same number of male and female within its constitution, this can bring changes even within the homes or the public spheres, because since the public sphere is historically offered not determined, but circumscribed as a space for women, as the place of women where women can act, the house and the private sphere, once they come with this thinking that we must change as well, this private sphere, as Lieli told, where many things happen, where resistance happen, where political things happen, then we can bring this to the public sphere, and we can bring awareness to situations that will happen only inside the homes and nuclear family, and that is often not exposed to public society, and therefore they are not solved. And to think that these both spheres, public and private, are still seen as different places or constructions, for me, it's a mistake. I mean, Hannah Arendt will say that one thing influences on the other. We cannot separate both spheres. These spheres must converse. These spheres, because they converge, these spheres influence each other. So it is really important to do that. And I think women can bring this perspective better than men, just because there was a place that was imposed for us. This division was really imposed historically for us. And I think that's my answer after thinking a little bit about it.
Thanks for using my answer that I didn't get it right. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think we should slowly say goodbye to everyone, because it's getting long and the discussion can go on to the next year, hopefully, like in just another event. Let's see what we can do. And thank you, Valeria, for proposing such a wonderful idea. And it gives us lots of like just motivation. And it's kind of like it's relieve us from this tiresome 2 weeks that we had, and enjoyable at the same time, interesting. It's kind of rewarding that to hear you on behalf of other the groups that they are interested and they want to pursue, definitely on the personal level, individual level, and as a kind of a part of any institution. We can collaborate with each other. There is no problem, no limitation to it. Like, and just if we have time, definitely we could on the individual level. And I don't know, maybe we should say goodbye. So I leave the last word to Susanne, probably.
To the institution. Well,
to the institution. Yvonne wanted to say something.
Perhaps before Susanne, I wanted to encourage all the Global South events to do streaming, please, because we have had a wonderful keynote speakers, and this is the first time that we can go and rewatch the panels and kept it for the memory of the events. And we had amazing people and an amazing panel throughout the years. And I think that I hope that this is the first year that we do it, but we will keep doing it. I'm just encouraging all of us to enforce that.
Yes, and for everyone, we recorded the opening keynote speaker and the opening and the very first 2 panels, and we will upload them like just by the end of the weekend to our like just website. And if you are waiting to see the keynote speaker one more time, please go ahead and double check our website like just on Monday. Hopefully we have it there. So now, Susanne.
Okay, the institution, the Interdisciplinary Center for Global South Studies, and if I may add, I personally thank you very, very much for having organized this. I'm not so good in English superlative adjectives, so I always take this amazing, fascinating, enriching, inspiring, stimulating, and so on debates. And we know how much work it has been to organize it. And we are so grateful. We can't express our gratefulness. Well, the only thing I can say is thank you very much.
Thank you too. for trusting us.
Yeah, and also those who cannot be here, and the technical support, and everyone who has contributed to make this happen. Thank you a lot. And bye, yeah. See you hopefully next year.
See you all. See you.
Thank you all.
See you hopefully next year. Bye.
Bye.